The rain fell hard on the thick alien forest. Each drop made a soft hiss when it touched the glowing leaves. Tom walked slowly through the wet ground, his boots sinking in soft mud. His breathing was heavy inside his helmet. He had been walking for hours, trying to find the rest of his team. The storm had broken their radio link, and his tracker showed no signal. The tall trees around him made the world feel endless. Every sound echoed strangely. He stopped for a moment to rest beside a fallen trunk. He checked his wrist device again, but the screen only flashed static. His supplies were low. He had enough food for one more day, and his water filter was cracked. Still, he was calm. He had trained for isolation. He knew that panic could make any situation worse. As he looked around, a sharp sound reached his ears. It was not thunder. It was a cry, faint, high, and trembling. He turned his head and listened again. The sound came from somewhere deeper inside the forest. It did not sound like a human voice. It was softer, almost like the call of a small animal. Curiosity and concern pulled him forward. He held his scanner and followed the sound. Branches brushed against his suit as he pushed through the glowing ferns. After a few minutes, he reached a small clearing where light from strange blue flowers lit the ground. There, under a half-broken tree, lay a small figure. It was a child. Not human. The child had smooth green skin with faint silver marks across the arms and face. Its eyes were large and pale, almost white. It wore a piece of torn cloth that looked handmade. The little creature shivered, one leg pinned under a heavy branch. The moment it saw Tom, it tried to crawl away, crying louder from fear and pain. Tom slowly raised his hands, showing that he meant no harm. His voice was gentle, though the child could not understand his words. "It's all right. I'm not here to hurt you." He knelt beside the child and carefully lifted the branch. The limb was lighter than it looked, and he managed to free the small leg. The injury was not serious but bleeding. Tom opened his field kit and sprayed a thin layer of medical foam over the wound. The foam glowed faintly and sealed the cut. The child looked at him wide-eyed and still breathing fast. Tom smiled inside his helmet, then removed it to show his face. The air was thin but breathable. He wanted the child to see that he was just a person, not a threat. He offered the child some water from his pack. The child hesitated, then took the container and drank slowly. The fear in its eyes began to fade. When it finished, it whispered something in a soft tone that Tom did not understand. Tom pointed at himself and said, "Tom." Then he pointed at the child, asking for a name. The child blinked, then touched its chest and said, "Rill." Tom repeated, "Rill." The child gave a small nod. It was a small connection, but it was enough. The rain began to fade, leaving the air cool and still. Tom knew he had to find shelter before night came. He helped Rill to stand and guided him toward a rocky ridge nearby. They found a dry space under a large stone arch. It was not perfect, but it would keep them safe from the weather. Tom built a small fire using dry roots and energy gel from his emergency kit. The flame gave a soft orange glow against the gray rock. Rill watched the fire closely, fascinated by its warmth. He reached toward it, but Tom gently stopped him, showing how to keep a safe distance. They ate together. Tom shared a ration bar, and Rill offered something from a small pouch that looked like dried fruit. The taste was strange but not bad. As the fire crackled, Tom studied the small alien more closely. Rill's hands were delicate with thin blue veins that glowed faintly. His eyes reflected the light like polished metal. Despite the alien appearance, Tom could see the same emotions a human child might have: fear, curiosity, and hope. Tom tried to imagine what had happened. Maybe Rill had been lost during a storm, or maybe attacked by one of the creatures that roamed this forest. The world was still a mystery to humans. His team had landed only 3 weeks ago to explore possible resources, but most of the planet was uncharted. He felt a strong sense of responsibility. The child was alone, hurt, and frightened. No matter how different they looked, Tom could not leave him behind. Night came quickly. The forest glowed faintly in the dark as the plants and insects released soft light. Strange calls echoed in the distance. Rill curled up close to the fire, his head resting on a folded piece of Tom's jacket. His breathing became steady. Tom sat nearby, staring at the stars through the small gap in the rocks. He could see 2 moons above, one bright and one pale green. Their light mixed with the glow of the forest, painting everything in soft colors. He thought about his team and wondered if they were looking for him. The communicator still showed no signal. If he stayed here too long, the search party might move in the wrong direction. But when he looked at Reel, sleeping peacefully beside the fire, he knew he could not leave yet. The child's safety came first. In the quiet of the night, Tom listened to the forest's rhythm. It was alive in a way Earth never was. Every sound carried meaning. Every light seemed to pulse with hidden energy. He felt small but connected, as if the world itself was watching. He did not know that in a way it truly was. Somewhere beyond the trees, hidden in the shadows, small crystal devices observed him. They had been placed there by unseen watchers. Every movement, every act of kindness was being recorded. But Tom had no idea. For him, the night was only a time to rest and protect the child he had found. At dawn, light filtered through the leaves. The forest shimmered with morning dew. Tom woke to find Reel already awake, sitting near the fire and holding a round stone that glowed with soft green light. The child hummed a tune that echoed faintly in the air. When Reel noticed Tom watching, he smiled and held out the stone as if offering it. Tom accepted it carefully. The surface was smooth and warm. It pulsed gently, almost like a heartbeat. He felt calm just holding it. Reel pointed toward the north, saying something quickly in his own language. Tom guessed it meant home. He nodded and smiled. "We'll find your home, Reel." They packed what little they had and started their journey. The forest was still wet from the storm, and mist floated low over the ground. Strange insects drifted in the air, glowing like tiny lanterns. Birds with transparent wings flew between the branches. As they walked, Reel pointed out safe paths and warned of dangerous plants. It seemed the child knew this land well. Tom followed carefully, marking their route on his wrist pad whenever the device caught a brief signal. At one point, they reached a shallow river. The water sparkled with blue light. Tom carried Reel across on his back, careful not to slip on the stones. On the other side, they rested beside a wide tree with roots as large as walls. Reel touched the bark and spoke softly, as if talking to the tree itself. Tom watched in silence. The bark shifted slightly under Reel's hand, releasing a faint hum. It felt as if the forest was responding. After they continued walking, Tom started to feel the world changing around them. The air became warmer and the trees grew taller. He noticed markings carved into stones along the way. They looked like symbols or runes. Reel touched each one as they passed, almost like a ritual. Tom did not understand the meaning, but he could sense that they were getting closer to something important. By evening, they reached a high ridge that overlooked a valley filled with light. In the distance, Tom could see strange towers rising from the earth, built from glowing crystal. It looked like a city, though unlike any he had ever seen. Reel pointed toward it, eyes bright with hope. Tom smiled, relieved that they had found some sign of civilization. He wondered what kind of people lived there, and whether they would welcome him or fear him. They made camp one last time before heading down the next morning. Tom built another small fire and repaired his gear while Reel hummed beside him. The bond between them had grown strong. Reel laughed easily now and trusted him completely. When night came, Tom lay awake thinking about how strange the universe could be. He had come to this planet as part of a mission to study minerals. Yet fate had given him something far greater, a chance to protect life, to connect across species, and to prove that kindness was a universal language. He did not know that his choice to help Reel would soon change everything. The path ahead would lead not only to the alien child's village, but also to a truth that would test his heart and spirit beyond anything he had ever imagined. As the fire faded and sleep took him, the forest lights pulsed softly around them, as if whispering that his journey had only begun. The morning sun rose over the alien forest like a golden wave spreading across the treetops. The air was fresh and clear after the long storm. Tom stretched his arms and took a deep breath. He felt ready to begin the journey. Reel, the small alien child, stood beside him with bright eyes, holding the glowing stone tightly in both hands. Tom smiled and packed his gear. He checked the direction on his scanner. The weak signal showed the mountain range that matched the map of their survey zone. Somewhere beyond those mountains was the valley where Reel's people might live. He pointed to the direction and Reel nodded eagerly. They set off together. The path was rough, filled with roots and soft ground. Strange plants moved slightly as they passed, opening and closing like they were alive. Small creatures with transparent shells climbed the trees. Some had wings that shone like mirrors. The forest was silent except for the soft sound of their steps and the distant hum of energy that seemed to come from the ground itself. Rill walked with surprising speed for someone so small. He moved with the rhythm of the land, jumping across rocks and sliding through vines. Tom followed carefully, making sure not to step on glowing plants that might be toxic. Every now and then, Rill turned back to check if he was keeping up. When Tom stumbled once, Rill giggled. Tom could not help but laugh too. As they walked deeper, the trees began to change color. The green leaves turned purple and gold. The trunks grew wider and twisted like spirals. The light that passed through the canopy painted the ground in patterns of soft blue and orange. It was beautiful, but also strange. Tom felt like he was walking through a dream. He had traveled many worlds before, but nothing had ever felt this alive. He could feel a faint vibration through the ground with every step, as if the planet itself was breathing. They reached a narrow canyon by noon. The air there was cooler. Thin streams of glowing mist rose from cracks in the stone. Rill motioned for Tom to stay quiet. He crouched and looked down at the river below. Large creatures were moving in the water. They had long fins and dark scales that reflected light like glass. Tom understood the warning. He followed Rill carefully along the edge of the canyon until they reached a fallen bridge of stone. Rill tested it with his small feet and crossed quickly. Tom followed slowly, balancing his weight. A few stones crumbled under his boots, but he managed to reach the other side safely. On the other side, Rill clapped his hands together and smiled. Tom bowed jokingly, pretending it was a grand victory. The child laughed again. Their bond grew stronger with every moment. As they continued, clouds began to gather. A light drizzle fell from the sky. Tom pulled out a thin cover from his pack and held it above Rill's head. The child looked up at him with wide eyes. No words were needed. Gratitude was clear in the small smile that followed. They walked through the rain until they found shelter under a group of giant plants that looked like umbrellas. Each leaf was big enough to cover both of them. Tom used his survival knife to cut a few branches and built a small barrier to keep away insects. He started a fire using his heat rod, and soon the warm glow returned. Rill sat beside him, holding the glowing stone in his hands again. He hummed a soft tune. The sound was gentle, like a lullaby. Tom watched as the stone brightened in rhythm with the song. It looked almost alive. He could not explain it, but the melody filled him with calm. When the rain ended, they continued walking. The ground became steep and rocky. Ahead, a narrow trail led upward toward the hills. Rill pointed to the top, saying something quickly. Tom guessed it was the next step of their journey. They climbed together, taking breaks whenever Rill became tired. From the higher ground, Tom could see the endless forest stretching out behind them. The view was breathtaking. The glowing plants created patterns that looked like rivers of light. Far in the distance, he could see flashes of lightning where another storm brewed. They reached a plateau by evening. It was covered in white grass that shimmered like frost. In the middle of it stood a small pool of clear water. Rill ran toward it and began to drink. Tom refilled his own container and washed his face. The water was cool and refreshing. As they rested, a sound broke the silence. A low growl echoed through the air. Tom turned quickly. From the edge of the plateau, a creature appeared. It was tall as a bear but lean like a wolf, with dark red fur and 4 glowing eyes. Its claws dug into the ground and its teeth were sharp like glass. Rill froze in fear. Tom slowly stood up, pulling a flare gun from his belt. He aimed it toward the creature and fired. The flare burst into bright light, filling the area with heat and color. The beast howled and stepped back, confused by the sudden brightness. Tom grabbed Rill's hand and ran. They ran down a slope, jumping over rocks and roots. The creature roared behind them, but it did not follow far. It stayed near the edge of the plateau, growling until they disappeared into the trees. When they finally stopped, Rill was trembling. Tom knelt down and placed a hand on his shoulder. "It's all right. We are safe now." He smiled and gave the child a small ration bar. Rill took it and nodded slowly, trying to calm down. Tom looked around and decided to make camp for the night. He chose a small hollow between 2 rocks. It was protected and hidden. He built a small fire again and checked his equipment. His power cells were half empty, but they would last a few more days if he used them carefully. As night fell, the forest around them came alive with light. Tiny flying creatures floated above the fire like glowing dust. Rill reached out his hands and the creatures landed gently on his fingers. They glowed brighter as if responding to him, Tom watched with wonder. It seemed the life on this planet had some kind of connection that he could not understand. Rill belonged to it, and somehow the world itself listened to him. Later that night, Rill lay beside him and pointed toward the sky. The stars above were countless. Some were moving slowly, leaving trails of green light. Rill said something in his soft voice, repeating a word that sounded like home. Tom nodded and whispered, "Yes, home." Even though they came from different worlds, that word meant the same thing to both. The next day they started early. The forest began to thin and the air turned cooler. The path led them into a region filled with stone arches and glowing moss. Every arch had carvings of symbols and faces. Rill touched one of the faces gently and bowed. Tom understood that this place was sacred. He followed quietly, not wanting to disturb the peace. As they walked deeper, the humming sound from the ground grew stronger. It was like a song rising from the earth itself. Rill began to hum along, and the light on the stones grew brighter. Tom stopped for a moment, amazed by what he was seeing. The carvings on the walls seemed to move as if alive. It was clear that the energy of this world was tied to Rill's people in ways humans could not imagine. They crossed the arches and entered a wide valley surrounded by glowing trees. In the center stood a tall crystal pillar that reached toward the sky. It shone with every color, changing slowly like a heartbeat. Rill ran to it and placed both hands on the crystal. A pulse of light spread across the valley. Tom felt warmth through his chest, like the planet itself was greeting them. He stepped closer and touched the surface too. The crystal vibrated softly under his hand. For a brief moment he saw images in his mind. Flashes of alien faces, cities of light, and strange flying creatures. It was not frightening, only beautiful. When the vision faded, Rill looked up at him with wonder. Tom smiled and said softly, "Your world is amazing." They stayed there for a while, resting and gathering strength. Before sunset, they continued their path. The landscape ahead began to change once more. The ground sloped downward into a valley filled with mist. The air smelled of minerals and faint ozone. Rill said a word Tom had learned to recognize. It meant close. They were near the village. The last few miles were hard. They crossed thick vines, sharp stones, and narrow paths that twisted like serpents. Tom carried Rill on his back during the toughest parts. His muscles ached, but he did not stop. The thought of returning Rill home gave him the strength to keep going. When they finally reached the edge of a cliff, Tom stopped and looked down. His breath caught in his throat. Below them, spread across the valley floor, was a massive village built around giant crystal trees. The lights from the homes shimmered like stars trapped in glass. Bridges of energy connected the tall structures. It was a living city, glowing softly under the twin moons. Rill's eyes filled with tears of joy. He pointed and said something fast, his voice full of emotion. Tom smiled, placing a hand on his shoulder. "We made it, Rill." They camped on the cliff that night, planning to reach the village by morning. The fire burned gently between them, and the wind carried the sound of distant singing from the valley below. It was calm and peaceful, yet Tom could not shake a strange feeling deep inside. Something about this journey felt larger than chance. He wondered why fate had led him here. He had only tried to help a lost child, but it felt like something unseen had guided his steps. He looked at Rill, who had already fallen asleep beside the fire, clutching the glowing stone close to his heart. Tom smiled and closed his eyes, unaware that unseen eyes were watching him from the shadows once again. The watchers spoke in silence, through light and thought. They had seen his courage, The first light of morning touched the alien valley. Soft mist floated above the glowing trees, and the air carried the scent of sweet minerals. Tom woke slowly, feeling the warmth of the sun on his face. Beside him, Rill was already awake, sitting near the fire and watching the valley below with bright eyes. Tom sat up and smiled. "We made it," he said softly. Rill looked at him and nodded, his silver eyes shining with excitement. They packed their few things and began to climb down the cliff. The path was steep but covered in vines that acted like natural ropes. Rill moved easily, knowing where to place his feet, while Tom followed carefully behind. Birds with crystal feathers flew around them, singing in clear tones that echoed through the valley. When they reached the bottom, Tom looked around in wonder. The trees were enormous, their trunks covered in glowing veins that pulsed with slow light. Bridges made of crystal connected the trees high above. Small houses were built along the branches, each one shaped like a curved shell. The village was alive, breathing with energy. Rill ran ahead, calling out in his own language. The sound carried through the valley. Soon figures began to appear from the trees and bridges. They were taller than Rill, graceful, with green and silver skin like polished stone. Their eyes glowed faintly, and their clothes were made of woven light. Tom stopped, unsure what to do. He did not want to frighten them. He raised his hands to show peace. The villagers surrounded him quietly, their faces calm but watchful. Rill ran to one of them, a woman who looked older and wore a crown of crystal leaves. She knelt down and hugged the child tightly. It was clear that she had missed him deeply. When Rill pointed toward Tom, all eyes turned to the human. The crowd murmured softly. Tom took a slow step forward, then stopped. He tried to smile even though his heart was racing. The older woman stepped closer. Her gaze was strong but kind. She spoke a few words, and a small device on Tom's wrist began to hum. It translated her speech into simple human words. "You found him," she said. Her voice was calm and melodic. "You brought our child back," Tom nodded. "He was lost in the forest. I could not leave him alone. He needed help." The woman placed her hand over her chest. "You have our gratitude, traveler." The crowd murmured again, but this time the tone was warm. Some of the villagers bowed their heads slightly. Rill smiled and ran back to Tom, holding his hand proudly as if introducing a hero. The woman turned and spoke a command. The villagers moved aside, creating a path. She motioned for Tom to follow her. Together they walked through the glowing trees toward the center of the village. The air inside the village was filled with music. The trees hummed softly, and glowing streams of energy flowed through the branches like rivers of light. Children played near pools of clear water, and adults worked around crystal structures that looked like machines made of nature. It was both ancient and advanced at the same time. They reached a large open space surrounded by tall stone pillars covered in carvings. At the center stood a great crystal throne shaped like a rising flame. An elder sat there, his skin darker green, his eyes deep gold. He looked strong but peaceful. His robe shimmered with patterns that moved like living symbols. The woman bowed before him and spoke. The elder listened carefully, then looked at Tom. His gaze was sharp but calm, like someone who saw far beyond what was visible. Tom waited as the device translated the elder's voice. "Human, your name is Tom, is it not?" "Yes," Tom replied. "You found one of our young far from home," said the elder. "You crossed the wilds, fought the dangers, and returned him safely. Tell me, what made you do this?" Tom thought for a moment. He was lost and afraid. "I only did what anyone should do. No one should be left alone in danger." The elder's eyes glowed faintly brighter. "A simple answer, but honest. Your kind came from the stars seeking to learn, yet many would not risk their lives for another being they do not know." Tom lowered his head slightly. "Maybe not. But I believe kindness is not limited by shape or world. It is something all life understands." A silence followed. The villagers whispered softly among themselves. Then the elder raised a hand and the voices stopped. "You speak with heart. That is rare among the stars." Rill stepped forward and held the elder's hand, speaking quickly in his native tongue. The elder smiled and touched Rill's head gently. Then he turned back to Tom. "You have done more than return a lost child. You have shown a spirit our people respect." Tom did not understand what that meant, but he bowed slightly. "I am only glad he is safe." The elder nodded. "You will stay among us for a time. You will rest, learn, and share food with our people. There is much for us to speak of." Tom agreed. He was tired from days of travel, and the thought of rest felt like a gift. The villagers led him to a home built in the roots of one of the great trees. Inside, everything glowed softly. The walls felt warm to the touch, as if alive. He was given food that tasted like fruit mixed with honey, and water that sparkled faintly. Rill stayed close, showing him how to eat properly and laughing when he made mistakes. The warmth of the people eased his nerves. That night, the elder sent a messenger to invite Tom to a gathering. He followed Rill through the village to a wide circle of light beneath the great crystal tree. Dozens of villagers stood there, their eyes glowing in the moonlight. The elder spoke again, but this time his tone was ceremonial. "We welcome the traveler from the stars, he who carried the child through storm and shadow, he who chose compassion over fear. Let his courage be honored." The villagers began to hum a low tone. The sound spread through the ground, through the trees, through the air. Tom felt it in his chest, deep and steady. The lights around them brightened as if the whole village was alive with energy. Rill stepped forward and placed the glowing stone in front of Tom. The elder raised his staff and touched the stone. It lit up like fire, casting colors across everyone's faces. The elder said, "This is the stone of spirit. It sees truth beyond words. It sees what is within." The light from the stone moved over Tom like a wave. He felt warmth but also a strange pulse deep inside his body. When it faded, the elder smiled slightly. "Your spirit carries strength and gentleness. You have passed the first bond." Tom blinked, confused. "First bond?" The elder did not answer directly. "Rest now, Tom of Earth. You will understand soon." Later that night, Tom lay on the soft bed the villagers had made for him. He stared at the glowing ceiling, trying to make sense of what had happened. He had come here only to return a lost child, but something far larger was taking place. He could not shake the feeling that every step he had taken since finding Rill had been part of a path already chosen. The next morning, Rill came to wake him. The child's face was full of energy. "Come," he said in broken English, one of the few words he had learned. "Elder Call." Tom followed him back to the great hall. The elder was waiting, along with several others. They looked serious. The elder said, "Today we will see how deep your heart truly runs. There are trials every leader must face. You will join us in the first one." Tom frowned. "Leader? I think you are mistaken. I am not one of you." The elder smiled slightly. "Perhaps. Yet you walk the path already. Do not fear. This is not punishment. It is understanding." Tom did not argue. He respected their customs. The villagers led him and Rill toward a wide field beyond the trees. There, glowing circles were marked on the ground. The elder raised his hand. "You must cross the path of balance. It will test your focus, patience, and spirit. The forest will know if your heart is true." Tom looked at the circles. The ground shimmered as if alive. Rill squeezed his hand gently. "You can." He took a deep breath and stepped forward. The ground beneath him moved slightly, shifting like liquid. Every step had to be careful. If he lost balance, the ground would open into deep water filled with light. The villagers watched in silence. Tom kept his eyes forward, moving slowly and calmly. The air grew warmer. Strange whispers filled his ears. He saw flashes of memories, moments of fear, moments of courage. He understood then that the trial was not physical. It was inside his mind. He focused on Rill's face, remembering why he had come. The light steadied, and the path became solid again. He walked across the last circle and stepped onto firm ground. The elder raised his staff high. "The forest accepts you." The villagers cheered softly, a song rising in their voices. Rill ran to Tom and hugged him. "You do it," he said happily. Tom laughed in surprise. "I guess I did." The elder approached him once more. "You have done well, human. But the journey is not over. There are still truths you must face." Tom nodded, feeling both honored and uncertain. He had no idea that what awaited him next would not be a simple test of balance, but a trial that would measure his courage and heart in ways he had never known. The villagers began to sing again as the sun set behind the mountains. The air shimmered with light, and the forest hummed softly around them. Tom stood among them, unaware that he had already taken the first step toward becoming part of their destiny. The next morning, the air in the alien village was crisp and quiet. Sunlight filtered through the glowing trees, creating dancing patterns on the ground. Birds with translucent wings flew above the crystal bridges, singing clear notes that echoed in the open space. Tom woke early, feeling rested but alert. Rill was already awake, sitting near the small pool in the courtyard. His silver eyes reflected the soft light as he watched the rippling water. When Tom approached, Rill ran to him with a bright smile. "Morning," he said in simple English. "Today, Elder Showmore," Tom nodded. He had learned to trust the rhythm of the villagers' days. Each task, each moment seemed to have a purpose he could not yet understand. Today he thought might reveal more about the test he was unknowingly taking. The elder appeared shortly after sunrise. His golden eyes scanned Tom carefully. "Human," he said through the translator. "Today will show how your courage and care extend beyond your own safety. You will see danger and your choice will speak louder than words." Tom listened carefully, uncertain of what lay ahead. He felt a strange tension in the air, though the sun shone warmly. Rill tugged gently on his hand, leading him through the village paths toward a valley at the edge of the forest. The trees there were darker and the mist was thick. Tom noticed the villagers were quiet, many following at a distance. As they reached the valley, a sudden sound shattered the calm. A roar deep and thunderous echoed across the rocks. Tom froze. His scanner immediately picked up movement, large creatures emerging from the forest. They were tall and muscular, with scales that reflected the sunlight in jagged patterns. Their claws dug into the ground as they moved forward. The villagers stepped back slightly, forming a protective circle. Tom's heart raced, but he remembered the lessons of the path of balance. Fear could freeze him. Instead, he focused on the child and the villagers. One creature, larger than the rest, charged forward, its 4 glowing eyes fixed on the nearest group of children playing near the crystal trees. Rill cried out, running toward them. Tom acted immediately. He grabbed a nearby fallen branch and used it as a makeshift barrier, swinging it to distract the creature. It paused briefly, growling, before shifting toward him. "Rill, stay close," Tom shouted, pushing the child behind him. The elder raised his staff, and a protective light barrier appeared around the villagers, shielding them from the immediate threat. Yet the creatures were strong, and the barrier alone could not hold them indefinitely. Tom realized that he would have to act if the children were to remain safe. He noticed a narrow rock ledge above the creatures. With Rill in his arms, he climbed swiftly, reaching a small perch where he could observe the beast. The creature below hissed, trying to find a way up. Tom's mind worked quickly. He saw a cluster of loose stones and used them to roll down small boulders toward the creature. Each strike distracted it, buying time for the villagers to pull the children further away. The largest creature roared in frustration, its tail smashing the ground. Tom leapt from the ledge, landing near Rill and grabbing the child securely. The smaller creatures circled but hesitated to approach too closely. Tom ran toward the open area, where the energy barriers of the villagers could contain the creatures. He tossed a few glowing stones from Rill's pouch into the path. The stones emitted pulses of light, confusing the creatures and slowing their advance. Rill clung tightly to him, his small hands gripping the human's armor. "Don't let them get them!" he shouted in his language. Tom understood immediately. The children must be protected at all costs. One of the creatures lunged toward Rill. Tom stepped forward and shoved it back with all his strength, keeping it away from the child. The beast howled but did not stop. Another boulder, thrown with careful aim, struck it squarely on the shoulder, causing it to retreat momentarily. Tom realized then that this was more than a random attack. Every choice mattered. How he protected the children, how he used his surroundings, and how he maintained calm under pressure. His training and instinct combined, guiding each movement. The elder watched from a distance, his golden eyes focused. The villagers remained in protective circles, observing silently. Tom did not know it, but every action, every decision he made, was part of the hidden test. Rill's cries guided him to the far side of the open area, where a group of smaller children had become separated. Without hesitation, Tom ran across the misty ground, dodging falling debris and rolling boulders. The ground beneath him glowed faintly, pulsing with energy as if recognizing his courage. He reached the children and quickly lifted 2 of them, carrying them to safety behind a barrier. Rill ran alongside him, helping guide the younger ones. Together they moved through the chaos, avoiding the beast's sharp claws and snapping jaws. The largest creature returned, charging at Tom with renewed fury. Tom grabbed a long metal rod from the debris and swung it with all his strength. The creature stopped short, growling in frustration. He could feel the heat of its breath as it lunged, but Tom remained steady. Suddenly the elder appeared beside him, touching his shoulder lightly. A wave of calm washed over Tom. The creatures paused, as if sensing the elder's presence. "You have done well," the elder said, "but do not let fear guide you. Protect life without hesitation and the path will open." Tom nodded, understanding that the true test was not strength but courage and selflessness. With renewed determination, he led the children and Rill through the remaining chaos, using the environment wisely. He rolled boulders to create barriers, guided the children across safe paths, and moved quickly whenever danger approached. Finally, the creatures retreated back into the forest, disappearing among the mist and trees. The valley fell silent once more. Tom knelt beside Rill and the other children, checking them for injuries. Everyone was safe, though shaken. The villagers stepped forward, surrounding Tom with soft words of praise and gratitude. The elder approached him, placing his hand on Tom's shoulder. "You see now," he said, "what it means to lead. It is not power but care, courage, and the willingness to put others before yourself. Tom shook his head, feeling both exhausted and honored. I am only human. I cannot lead your people. The elder's eyes glowed faintly. Leadership is not measured by shape nor by years. It is measured by the heart. You have shown a heart that understands what ours has always known. You have passed the second part of the trial. Real ran to Tom, hugging him tightly. You saved us, he said simply. Tom smiled, feeling a warmth he had not experienced before. The villagers gathered around, singing softly as light from the crystal trees filled the valley. Tom felt connected to them, to this world, and to the strange destiny that had chosen him. The elder continued, Rest now. The path ahead will test patience and wisdom. There will be decisions that shape not only our world but yours as well. Tom nodded, knowing that his journey was far from over. He looked at Real, whose small hand held his firmly. Together they had faced danger, uncertainty, and fear. Together they had survived. As night fell, the village glowed like a living constellation. Tom lay in the quiet, listening to the gentle hum of the trees. He realized that every step he had taken, from finding Real to facing the creatures, had been a choice. Every choice mattered, and the consequences rippled far beyond what he could see. He closed his eyes, feeling both pride and humility. The hidden test was not over, but he understood its lesson clearly. True courage meant risking oneself for others, showing compassion in the face of danger and leading with heart rather than force. Real curled beside him, and Tom wrapped an arm around the small alien child. Outside, the forest pulsed softly, as if acknowledging his bravery. The elder's words echoed in his mind. The path was open, but only for those willing to walk it with selflessness and courage. Tomorrow he would face new challenges. Yet tonight he rested, knowing he had proven something important, not only to the villagers but also to himself. He had chosen the right path, and for the first time he felt that his actions could change a world. The glowing stones in Real's pouch lit the room with a soft, steady light. Outside, the mist rose over the valley, reflecting the stars above. Tom watched it silently, thinking about how simple choices, helping a lost child, showing kindness, staying calm under pressure, could shape destinies. The hidden test was real. And for the first time, Tom understood that he was not just a visitor on this world. He was a part of something greater. The sun rose slowly over the alien village, painting the crystal trees in soft hues of gold and green. The valley was calm, yet the energy in the air hinted that something important was about to happen. Tom woke to find Real already waiting beside him. The small alien child held the glowing stone carefully, his eyes filled with excitement and pride. Today, Real said simply, Elder, show you everything. Tom nodded, feeling a mix of curiosity and nervousness. He had faced storms, wild creatures, and hidden trials, but he did not know what awaited him today. Whatever it was, he trusted the villagers and the elder who had guided him. They walked together through the village toward the central plaza. The villagers lined the paths, watching silently as Tom passed. Many smiled, some bowed slightly, and children ran to wave. The air hummed faintly, like a soft song that resonated from the crystal trees themselves. At the center of the plaza stood the elder, his golden eyes calm and steady. Beside him were several other figures, each one tall and graceful, with robes that shimmered with moving patterns. They did not speak yet, only observing Tom closely. The elder raised his hand. A soft pulse of light spread through the plaza, illuminating every face. Tom of Earth, he said, you have walked the path we set before you. You have cared for the lost, faced danger without hesitation, and shown wisdom beyond your years. Today you will understand why your choices mattered. Tom took a deep breath. I am only a human, he said. I did what anyone would do. I did not seek honor or power. The elder's gaze softened. True leadership is not about seeking. It is shown by those who act without thought of reward. You have done this for a child, for the village, and for the balance of life itself. This is why you are here. Tom blinked. I do not understand. What do you mean? The elder turned toward the villagers, who began to hum a gentle tune in unison. The sound rose and fell like waves. Tom felt it in his chest, as if the forest itself was speaking through them. Light from the crystal trees pulsed in harmony with the hum, and the glowing stones in Real's pouch began to shine brightly. You have been tested. The elder continued. Not by chance, but by design. Every step, every choice was observed. From finding the lost child to facing the creatures of the wild, your heart was measured. You have passed. Tom shook his head. Passed for what? The elder smiled faintly. To lead. Our people seek a chieftain who embodies courage, kindness, and wisdom. Not of our blood, but of our spirit. You have shown that you are worthy. Tom's heart raced. He had never thought of himself as a leader, and yet he felt a strange warmth inside. He looked at Rill, who nodded confidently. The child seemed to understand more than Tom did. I am not one of you, Tom said slowly. I am human. I cannot lead your people. The elder stepped closer. Leadership is not limited by shape or origin. It is the willingness to act for others, to protect and to care. You have done so without hesitation. That is why we honor you. The villagers began to chant softly, their voices weaving a melody that filled the plaza. The light from the crystal trees grew brighter, casting long patterns across the ground. Tom felt as if the entire world was holding its breath. The elder raised a staff made of living crystal. Step forward, Tom of Earth. Let the spirit of our people bond with yours. Tom hesitated for a moment, then stepped forward. Rill ran ahead and placed the glowing stone in front of him. The elder touched the stone with his staff. It pulsed with light and warmth, and a wave of energy flowed through Tom. Suddenly, he could understand the language of the villagers completely. Their thoughts and feelings came to him as clear as words. He could sense their joy, their trust, and their hope. He could feel the pulse of the forest, the rhythm of life that connected all beings here. The elder spoke again. This bond will allow you to guide us, to understand our ways, and to protect the balance between our world and yours. You are now part of our destiny. Tom felt a deep sense of awe. He looked at Rill, whose small hand held his tightly. The child's eyes shone with pride and trust. He realized then that this was never about power for himself. It was about responsibility, care, and connection. The villagers stepped closer, bowing in respect. Some laid small offerings of glowing crystals at Tom's feet. The elder touched Tom's chest with the staff, and a soft light spread from that point, enveloping his entire body. You are chosen, the elder said. Chosen to lead with heart, to protect and to unite our people with all life around us. Tom bowed his head. I accept, he said quietly. Not because he wanted honor, but because he knew he could not refuse the trust of so many lives. The villagers cheered softly, their voices rising in harmony. Children ran to touch his hands, and adults nodded with smiles of confidence. Rill jumped up and down beside him, laughing with pure joy. The elder motioned for them to gather around the great crystal throne. Tom stepped forward, and the villagers guided him to the center. The staff touched the throne, sending a pulse of light throughout the plaza. Energy flowed through him, filling him with a clarity he had never known. You are not just a human, the elder said. You are a bridge between worlds. Your courage has proven that the heart can lead beyond boundaries, beyond stars, beyond fear. Tom looked around at the glowing faces, the crystal trees, and the children he had helped protect. He realized that he was part of something much greater than himself. He was part of a story that connected worlds, species, and generations. The elder continued. From this day forward, Tom of Earth, you are our chieftain. Lead us with the same courage, kindness, and wisdom that brought you here. Protect our children, guide our people, and unite your world with ours. Tom felt the weight of the words, but also a deep joy. He knelt slightly, touching the glowing stone with both hands. The energy flowed into him, strengthening his resolve. I will do my best, he said firmly. I will protect and care for your people just as I promised to protect Rill. Rill hugged him tightly. You are the best, he said simply. The villagers surrounded them, singing a melody that seemed to come from the forest itself. The light from the crystal trees pulsed in time with the song. Tom felt a connection to everything, the land, the people, the creatures, and even the glowing stones that Rill carried. Later, the elder led Tom and Rill to the edge of the village. From this viewpoint, the valley stretched endlessly, filled with crystal towers, glowing bridges, and flowing energy streams. You see, human, the elder said. Our world and yours are not so different. You have shown that courage and care can connect all life. Never forget that, Tom nodded. He thought about the journey that had brought him here, finding Rill in the storm, facing dangerous creatures, and learning the ways of the alien village. Each step had led to this moment. He realized that true leadership was not about control or power. It was about compassion, understanding, and the willingness to act when others could not. It was about making choices for the good of all, even when the path was difficult or uncertain. The elder placed a hand on Tom's shoulder. "Rest now, Chieftain. You have earned this honor. Your people await your guidance, and your heart has proven strong." As the sun set behind the mountains, the village glowed softly, a living constellation of light and energy. Tom looked at Rill, whose eyes reflected the colors of the sky. Together they had faced storms, fear, and challenges. Together they had reached a new beginning. That night, the villagers held a ceremony under the largest crystal tree. Tom was placed at the center, and the glowing stone rested on his chest. Light spread from the stone, illuminating the faces of the villagers and the forest around them. Music filled the air, rising in gentle waves. The elder spoke once more. "You are now part of our story. Lead with heart, guide with wisdom, and protect all life. You are not just human, nor just alien. You are the bridge. You are the chieftain of two worlds." Tom felt a quiet strength fill him. He knew he had been chosen not for glory, but for the heart he had shown. He would guide these people with care, protect them with courage, and unite their world with his own. Rill sat beside him, holding his hand. The child's smile was a promise that Tom would never forget. Together they would face whatever the future held, not as human and alien, but as friends, protectors, and leaders.